rise. I welcome those who are present and those that are in Zoom, and any visitors who are not with us but just listening to us, we welcome them to our midst. At this time, we will have a few minutes of silence, and this time to meditate or to pray, and then following that, we have the pledge of allegiance to the flag. And I realize the flag is behind me, so I will be turning now. But let's have some times of silence first. For those that I encourage you to pray for development of more unity in our townships. It would be a great prayer.
I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you. Roll call at this time. Casey? Raise your hand if you're present.
Here, sorry.
Thanks for
The order?
your voluminous packet.
Here.
Yoder? He's here.
Steve?
Black?
Yes.
Carlson? On the phone.
No, I'm on the planning commission. You're thinking of the other guy.
Hubble?
Here.
Yes, she did. I'll tell her you said so.
It's right there.
He says you
I
did.
see him.
Yeah.
Bottom
What
right.
can I do for you?
Lautner?
Just to hold you on the phone?
Present.
McCulloch?
Present.
Miller?
Here.
Okay. All right, I'm just
Nixon?
gonna hang on to you here.
Here.
Winkleman?
Present.
Okay, we have a full house.
Well,
Thank you very
a
much.
virtual half house, actually.
Well, we've got one and a half, okay. Any items on the agenda? The agenda is before you. Our visitors have an agenda, and our colleagues on the Zoom already have an agenda packet. Are we ready for a vote to approve the agenda?
Wait, I have one item,
Okay.
and I don't know if Gail's going to bring it up or not. The meeting dates for November, December, are we going to keep them? Are we going to discuss them? Or has it already been decided what we're going to do?
Let's let staff comment on that.
Huh?
Let's let staff, during staff comments, update us on if the dates have been changed. The answer's nothing yet?
No, they've been
Okay,
changed.
nothing yet, you
They've
got
been
it.
discussed.
So can we discuss it?
We can discuss it at staff comments time? Or
It's just that the
Yeah, but-
November meeting is 2 days before Thanksgiving. People may
Okay,
want to get in their cars and travel. Of course, I guess they could do it virtually from their car.
well, let's put this under item C of new business, although it is new business. Agenda.
It's going to be very difficult for you to hear and understand. That's
Schedule,
okay, because you're making the public comment.
Okay.
November and December. Conflict of interest.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I would have a conflict of interest because the item number 2 under business refers to Suttons Bay Township. And I'll be available to respond, but I will not be voting in that.
Thank you.
Yes,
So,
did we approve the agenda? I missed it, or, did we approve the agenda?
We have not.
not yet.
Not yet.
Did I?
Any other comments on the agenda?
So where did you want to add discussion on the meeting date or
He put that under new business.
you put it under new? Okay, thank you.
Under C.
Item C.
See, thank you. I missed that.
Thank you, Lautner, appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I move that we accept the agenda as written.
is there a second?
Second.
Any comments? Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now, Nixon, the conflict of interest, we noted that, thank you. Any other conflicts of interest? Okay, thank you. Public comment? Let me ask a question from in lieu of public comment at this time, would you prefer to hear them before we address the item on the agenda that relates to their issue? No? The lawyer says no.
That-
Okay.
That's worked before, but do they want to do it that way?
No, not what they want to do.
Well,
What we believe is best to do.
We have public comments, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, afterwards. too.
Okay,
I just shook my head no, because we just approved our agenda. Oops. You know, so,
Yeah,
That was
we've
fine.
already approved the agenda.
okay.
You will be heard from.
Thank you. Lautner, I should sit next to you.
maybe not.
Don't forget.
It's almost all those years
So
on the
now this is a
board.
public comment,
We give the phone
and
number.
I know that you are aware that we have a 3-minute limit, but I'm not going to look at my clock because you're the only person with us.
Mr. Chairman, you should read the public comment number so that they can call in.
I do have Jack Kelly currently
I
on,
will.
Yeah, did he give the number out so
I will.
that they know?
I will say, before I go to the next number of the agenda, yes.
And should we stand or do we come up?
We'd like you to be by the mic.
Is that it there?
The green light shows that you're on.
Okay, thank you.
first. I'm sorry.
Wait, are we on the agenda item or is this something else? that
This
you're-
is
Public comment.
This is public comment.
Thank
Okay,
you.
does it have to do with any of the agenda items?
Yes.
It does.
Would you prefer to speak
No.
prior to the
Oh,
agenda
she's
item?
doing it now.
Okay, I'll be quiet, Mr. Chairman, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Sue Jones, 12684 South Cedar Lane, Elmwood Township. The references in my comment are included in the exhibit folders that were distributed to you in advance of the meeting. I want to thank you for the opportunity to share a few of my thoughts on why I support the Elmwood Township text amendment on short-term rentals. Regardless of what anyone wants to believe on this issue, and absent any legislation signed into law overruling recent court findings, short-term rentals, also known as STRs or vacation property rentals, are a commercial activity. This was confirmed in a published opinion by the Michigan Court of Appeals and recently upheld in a ruling by the Michigan Supreme Court. As seen in Exhibits 2 and 3, our Zoning Board of Appeals determined in March 2019 that STRs are not an allowed use in Elmwood Township. As seen in Exhibit 4, a moratorium on enforcement against any non-owner occupied vacation rentals was adopted, and the Township Planning Commission was directed to study the issue. Their recommendation is to allow them in some districts, but not to allow them in R1. Single-family homes may appear to be a sound investment opportunity for conversion to motel-like vacation rentals that serve transient lodgers. But that would be a commercial use. And as seen in Exhibit 17, single-family homes in our neighborhoods were intended for a residential use to be lived in year-round by families, retirees, long-term renters, and our workforce. It's unfortunate that the number of vacation properties have almost doubled in Elmwood Township since the ZBA made that ruling, many of them in our neighborhoods. Some investors chose to continue operating, and putting caution aside, others opened new ones without a clear and lawful change in the zoning. Our planning commissioners did not find business owners taking a financial risk was a compelling reason to shred the recently adopted zoning ordinance that limits commercial activity in R1 to those where a primary resident is present. By applying the zoning ordinance amendment guidelines as seen in Exhibit 14, the Planning Commission did not find short-term rentals to be a compatible use in the R1 district. And that is why I support the Elmwood Township text amendment on short-term rentals as it's proposed. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Any comments on the phone? Comments?
Jack Kelly is on hold waiting to make his public comment.
And Rod has a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rod. Yes, by all means.
Good evening. My name is Rod Jones, 12684 South Cedar Lane, Elmwood Township. I support the proposed Elmwood Township zoning ordinance amendment. Non-owner occupied short-term rentals, a commercial use of property will be allowed in some districts, but not allowed in R1, which includes our residential neighborhoods as they are not a compatible use. Over a year ago, Kathy Egan from Networks Northwest did a presentation in which she said short-term rentals are here to stay. However, she pointed out that each township is unique and would need to look at their own community master plan and zoning ordinance to determine where short-term rentals should be allowed and what regulations might be needed. Looking at most of the townships in Leelanau County, we find that the master plans specifically draw attention to the seasonal nature of their communities and that their economies are primarily anchored by tourism. On the other hand, the major narrative and theme of the recently adopted Elmwood Township Master Plan maintained its previous focus on the residential qualities of the township, with consideration given to multi-generational and workforce housing. It notes that residents want limited commercial development within the township and are satisfied with depending on Traverse City for their shopping, dining, and commercial needs. Our township demographics and high-density neighborhoods, especially in Graylickville, are very similar to those in Garfield, Peninsula, and Acme Township, as well as the city of Traverse City. None of them allow short-term rentals in their residential neighborhoods. Regionally, there is intense pressure on scarce housing stock by people who want to live in the community where they work, as well as by those who want to move in our area because they can work remotely. There has been no convincing argument by business owners that the Elmwood Township should allow single-family homes in our residential neighborhoods to be converted into short-term rentals or to allow commercial activities unless a primary resident is present. I respectfully request that you support the decision of the Elmwood Township Planning Commission that recommends adopting the short-term rental zoning ordinance amended in its current form. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Now we will have an opening for phone calls. Let me at this time share the phone number again. 231, obviously, 256 8109.
We do have a caller on the phone right now. It's Jack Kelly calling from Colorado to make a public comment. Can you do that at this time?
Yes.
Okay, Jack, are you ready to make public comment? I'm going to put you on speakerphone.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there you go.
Welcome, Jack. Thank you very much for your concerns. You're on.
Thank you. Well, good evening. My name is Jack Kelly. I live at 10100 East Avondale Lane in Elmwood Township. I want to thank you all for allowing me to comment from afar. I want to thank all of you for reviewing all the information that was provided by the various parties. And I want to pay particular thanks to county staff for their comprehensive, well-researched staff report. And I also trust that the fact that zoning provided was of assistance to you in your review. To me, this matter boils down to the following zoning exhibits. First off, exhibits 2 and 3 that give substance and meaning to the March 20th, 2019 Zoning Board of Appeals decision that non-owner-occupied short-term rentals are not currently a permitted use under the Elmwood Township zoning ordinance. Next, there's Exhibit 4, the Township Board Resolution number 11 of 2019, which, among other things, first acknowledged the ZBA's March 20th, 2019 decision in its recital C, which I just mentioned earlier. In recital D, it confirmed that it was appropriate to take a look at the use to see whether it fits in with the township's master plan and our current zoning ordinance. And thereafter, tasked the planning commission to determine whether it's appropriate to allow such use within the township or to continue prohibiting the use. Then there's Exhibit 6, which defines under the Elmwood Township zoning ordinance both a home business and a home occupation as being lawful economic enterprises conducted by the occupants of a single-family residence or a dwelling. This in comparison to a use where the occupants do not reside in the use. Next, there's Exhibit 7 and 8, which clearly define short-term rental as the commercial use of renting a dwelling or dwelling unit. That definition is not only found in the proposed Elmwood Township zoning ordinance amendment, but also the same way
in Suttons Bay Township, the village of Suttons Bay, Leelanau Township draft definition, Acme Township, the city of Traverse City, and also Networks Northwest. Clearly, a non-owner occupied short-term rental is a commercial use. And then there's Exhibit 7, proposed Elm Township short-term rental tax amendment itself that embodies what was proposed and also the ultimate outcome of the September 22nd, 2020 Planning Commission decision, which was a decisive 6-1 vote. This following 14 months of study and consideration during 20 separate meetings, as originally requested by the Township Board under Resolution number 11 of 2019. Surely, the Planning Commission did its job. But in the final analysis, they recommended to the Township Board that short-term rentals, non-owner occupied short-term rentals, not be permitted in the R1 zoning district, and only in the R2 and Ag zone districts that such short-term rentals were in operation during the 24 months prior to the Township ZBA March 20, 2019 decision. Thus, in conclusion, non-owner occupied short-term commercial uses are not compatible with Elm Township residential neighborhoods, nor are they supported by the Elm Township Master Plan or the Elm Township zoning ordinance guidelines and requirements pertaining to the R1 zoning district. And for that reason, I support the Township Planning Commission's September 22nd, 2020 recommendation to the Township Board as presented and as currently before you for your review. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck. Anybody from the public, reminding you, 231-256-8109.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Do we have anybody?
I just said goodbye to Jack.
Okay. Okay, public comment?
Hi, this is the Leelanau Planning Commission. Are you calling for public comment? May I ask who's calling? May I put you on speakerphone? Okay, please say your name again and you may make public comment.
Joseph Testa.
Very good, go ahead, you're on and we're listening to you.
Yes, I am against the short-term rental proposal that the Planning Commission put together in Elmwood Township. I am in favor of short-term rentals, and I live at 10271 South Center Highway in Elmwood Township.
Okay, do you want to talk about why you're against the proposal?
Am I live right now?
Yes, you are, we're listening
You
to
have 2 minutes and 17 seconds left.
Name, please.
He gave it. Yes, I'd love to give more public comment. I was one of the people that Sue Jones mentioned who bought after the March of 2019 zoning board amendment. And one of the big disappointments to my wife and I, along with the other people who have purchased since that time, is just there was very little communication for where the township landed. It was requested many times since then that the township actually put something in writing so that people would not continue to buy houses to use for short-term rental. And the township and the Planning Commission ignored that request. And so many people, including myself, have made investments both for us to use personally and to use for short-term rental. And we have been very disappointed that there was nothing made available to the public about where the township was at in this process. And so a lot of it really comes down to the fact that we have appealed many times regarding the fact that there was just really poor leadership and communication in leading those who were in the process of buying in the area. So I know that sounds kind of harsh, but our heart is really that we want to bless the community, and we love to host people in our home, and so that is that's about all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, your comment's been received and reviewed. Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Okay.
You bet, bye.
Bye-bye.
Just to remind us, we're listening to public comments, they're going to be recorded. And as we enter the agenda item specifically talking about Leelanau Township, I will have a few comments to start off with to guide us in the right direction. Do we have somebody waiting?
I'm going to be putting you on speakerphone, is that all right? Okay, I'm going to put you on speakerphone now. If you could start with your name and comment, we'll all be listening. Go ahead.
Okay, is there, wait a minute, is there not someone already speaking?
No, you are speaking currently.
Oh, okay, all right.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, hi, my name is Emmett Mulligan, and my wife and I are both members of Citizens Hosting Elmwood Renters, also known as SHARE. I'm calling tonight to read from our letter, which was presented in the packet to the Planning Commission tonight. Members of the Planning Commission. This commission is on behalf of Citizens Hosting Elmwood Renters, also known as SHARE, a group which currently includes the following members. I won't read them all to you, you have them in your packet, but there are 40 members of our group. Many of our members own and operate more than one short-term rental, and were given verbal or written permission to do so by Elmwood Township prior to starting. In addition, the rest of us did our due diligence prior to purchasing our homes by checking with Elmwood Township's website, consulting with local realtors, and or contracting Elmwood Township to ask, and we were told that short-term rentals were not regulated in Elmwood Township. To our knowledge, this has continued as recently as January of this year. We then purchased our homes and made significant investments in those homes to get them ready for the rental based on that information. Further, we are including a letter with a list of local businesses, renters, residents, and property owners, along with their comments in support as additional reasoning for allowing the existing short-term rental to continue in the residential neighborhood of Elmwood Township. We asked the Leelanau County Planning Commission make the following changes to the Elmwood Township Planning Commission's proposed zoning ordinance amendment. Section 2.2, definition short-term rental. We ask that we strike the word commercial in the definition of short-term rental. Short-term rentals are no more commercial than long-term rentals, which are allowed in residential districts. The only difference being a long-term rental, the only difference between a long-term rental and short-term rental in the definition above is the number of days the home can be rented. Therefore, we agree with the definition except for the word commercial. Also, section 5.4, land use and zoning district table. Please add the word P as in Paul to all districts and strike the quote add to end of table unquote paragraph in its entirety. Alternatively, please add P plus to the R1 district in addition to A-R and R-2 and change the language in the quote add to end of table paragraph to read as follows. P plus allows for intended core use prior to the enactment of short-term rental police powers. We're asking for the allowances of the short-term rentals in the residential areas because the majority of the existing short-term rentals are in those districts. In addition, they fit with the character of the residential neighborhood as mentioned in the Elmwood Township Master Plan. If the township does not want to continue allowing for short-term rentals in residential neighborhoods moving forward, that can be done using language we suggested above. Thank you for your time and attention. It's a very important matter facing Elmwood Township. We ask that this letter and the attachment be included in the packet of the Leelanau County Planning Commission's meetings regarding the Elmwood Township zoning ordinance amendment on short-term rental, which we set to be on the agenda for the meeting scheduled for October 27th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will clarify after we start with the consent item of Leelanau Township. I want to make you all aware, this body here does not write amendments for the townships. The Township Planning Commission does amendments for the township. The County Planning Commission does not write the ordinance. Do we have something coming on board?
Leelanau County Planning Commission, hi. Okay, I'm going to put you on speakerphone. If you could start again with your name and you may make your comments. Here you go. You're on.
Hello, my name is Todd Spade. I live at 11100 West Bay Shore Drive, Traverse City, in Elmwood Township, actually. I'm a 32-year resident of Elmwood Township and here to voice my support for SGRs in Elmwood R1 district, where most of them currently exist and where they have always been allowed by right of property ownership, allowed literally forever. Written permission has been given to some by the township. The historic legacy of letting a home on the lake in Elmwood will no longer be possible if this goes through, as most of the R1 district is on the waterfront. This despite a clear majority of residents in Elmwood, 956 out of 1,753 respondents wanting STRs to be allowed on the waterfront. Commissioned by the board to inform on the issue. The change in the text that you are contemplating, eliminating STRs in R1, will have a negative impact throughout the county on a wide range of local area businesses going well beyond tourism alone. According to Elmwood's legal counsel, the purpose of the police power ordinance, which is also included here, is to ensure that STRs fit into the master plan. That's the whole idea. So they fit in the plan. Chair welcomes the regulation to satisfy the community, but believes STRs have always been just fine. Not because of the regulation, but rather because they are just residential homes being used for short-term residential use. That is, the people inside are just living or residing there. They're cooking, they're eating, they're sleeping, everything like everybody else. No other commercial use is happening. The commercial act, this is important, the commercial act of renting out your home for others to live in does not change the residential nature of the home, whether you're renting it out long-term, more than 30 days, or short-term, less than 30 days. This change is also contrary to the Elmwood Master Plan. Under the residential land use, page 25, the plan states provide for a range of residential styles and densities to meet the needs of the township's diverse population. This amendment undeniably decreases the range and diversity of housing options for citizens of Elmwood and Leelanau County. Most short-term rentals operate as long-term rentals on a month-to-month basis outside the peak summer season and are the only flexible option for our diverse population with diverse needs that at times can be transient. Situations change, often suddenly and sometimes tragically. Where will you go and how far will you have to go if your house burns or floods or your family breaks apart or you find yourself between homes or you just want to do a remodel that renders your home inhabitable for a short period? Shared members have taken all of these calls. My wife and I are currently housing Elmwood neighbors whose house burned in Maine, within walking distance to their own home as it's built in the R1 district. Citizens everywhere need this option as sort of a safety valve or backstop, particularly in a very tight, very expensive housing market. For this reason, the zoning amendment should be expanded to include all residential districts, including R1. People need more housing choices, not less. Thank you.
Thank you, we received your comment. Goodbye.
Just to remind you, the phone number for public comments, 231-256-8109. Is anybody on the line? We'll wait just a few seconds and we'll go on with the agenda. Okay, thank you. We're still on the agenda. Staff comments. No staff. Trudy had another commitment, and we are now baptizing Gail as the one in charge of everything. Thank you, Gail. You're extremely competent and not at all worried.
Use the word baptizing.
Consider September 22nd meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Say yes, sir.
I move that we accept the September 22nd, 2020 meetings as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All ready to vote in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
Or raise your hand, or that is an unanimous approval. New business. We're now entering the discussion on the Elmwood Township text amendment. The procedure steps I'd like to follow first will be to allow staff to give us their staff review. Then I'll invite Sarah Capriva, who's someplace in internet space, ask staff of the planning commission in Elmwood to see whether she has any comments in response to the comments that she will be hearing from our staff. Then after that, go into the commission discussion. Our role is to see whether anything in the proposed motion or they follow maybe procedures that could have been enhanced, to be sure they are fairly well covered, that they were responsive to the public and what they were doing. That's our major concern, so they will not, so they're safe in what they've done. We have to confine ourselves to not being evaluating whether we like things or don't like things. That's not our business. We have to confine ourselves to following procedures properly, that all technical issues and legislative regulations are being abided with. Any questions on that? Okay, so we're at peace with that?
I have one more public comment. Is public comment time over?
It is. Tell them to come back at the
No, we
end.
should allow it because
Yeah, let them do it.
Let them do it.
Let them come? Okay.
Deviate, let them do it.
it's.
Now in 3 minutes.
If you're on speakerphone right now,
You might not have
you
got
say your
through.
name and you start with your comment.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
This is Anne-Marie Wheaton, 10825 South Orchard Way, Elmwood Township. I am a fourth-generation resident here, and I am also the president of SHARE, Citizens Hosting Elmwood Renters. I just want to say that I am in support of short-term rentals. This is something that, as a young family here, that we have needed, and we're in support of them in all areas. Including R1, and we would like to see the zoning amendments be less restrictive. We'd like more rentals and just the ability for people to host when they want, and also that, again, just that they're allowed, especially those of us that have been doing it. We think that rentals do have a place in our township, and they do have a place within our master plan. Again, helping young families, helping those that are retiring with some supplement income. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
I appreciate all those that have been giving us comments. I'm being a little bit strict on time and a little bit annoying. I apologize, no, but that's my job as chair. A comment that I'd like to say as we move on to staff comments on the agenda item, new business item A. A comment I wanted to say is I was impressed by the commitment and concern and interest of all of those that sent us documents, signing in, showing what they were supporting. I'm enchanted to see that. Now, at this time, we have two alternatives. But in the future, whatever happens now, don't stop from being cooperating together. You could have Sonny and Cher. Remember those two singers? One group calls themselves Sonny, the other group calls themselves Cher. So let's think, Sonny and Cher and be together and unified in the great Elmwood Township. Okay, with that preamble, can I hear from staff comments on their review?
Okay. This is a request from Elmwood Township to amend their zoning ordinance with regard to short-term rentals. The township,
Gail, could you move your microphone closer
Yeah.
to you? Thank you.
the township has also worked on a separate ordinance, a police power ordinance. It is mentioned in our staff report, and a copy is included, but it is not for review at tonight's meeting. The county has 30 days to review and provide a report back to the township, with the 30 days expiring November 13th. On page 6 of the agenda packet, we note that the Elmwood Township Master Plan and the county's general plan do not specifically address short-term rentals. The Township Planning Commission held a meeting on September 15th and then September 22nd. The motions from those meetings are on page 6. Page 7 of the agenda packet starts staff comments, and we have listed what the township is proposing to change in the ordinance. This amendment addresses short-term rentals where the owner does not occupy the dwelling while it is being rented out. On page 8, we provide some information about short-term rentals and how communities might decide if they want to regulate them or not. We then provide some history and note that we received documents from 2 township groups, Share and Sunny. These documents were mailed to all County Planning Commission members, and they are listed on the county website for this meeting, along with other written public comments that were received. Short-term rental discussion started in the township some time ago when a citizen asked the township board to do amendments to prevent these activities in high-density neighborhoods. The township board then requested the zoning board of appeals for an interpretation of the ordinance. In March 2019, the zoning board of appeals held a meeting and then made a motion that bed and breakfasts were allowed, but short-term rentals were not allowed. The staff report includes information from the zoning ordinance on several sections regarding duties of the zoning administrator and the zoning board of appeals. Following the decision of the zoning board of appeals, the Township Planning Commission worked on a proposed amendment and held a joint meeting with the Township Board on November 6, 2019, as well as numerous other Township Planning Commission meetings. Also, the Township Board passed a resolution imposing a moratorium on July 22, 2019, against non-owner occupied rentals. They extended the moratorium a couple of times, most recently on May 11, 2020. The police power ordinance previously mentioned is not being reviewed tonight, but is similar to the one adopted by Suttons Bay Township in 2017, and it addresses such things as parking, licensing, trash pickup, quiet hours, a contact person, etc. Also, Bingham Township recently adopted a police power ordinance for short-term rentals. The proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance would allow non-owner occupied short-term rentals in all districts except the R1 district. They would be allowed in the AR and R2 district only if they existed during the 24 months prior to the Zoning Board of Appeals decision and they acquire a license. On page 10 and 11 of the agenda packet, we have included some comments and suggestions on the text for the township to consider. We have suggested a couple minor changes and a spelling correction. We have suggested they remove short-term rentals from the municipal center district, as that is township-owned property. We have questioned why they don't allow it in R1 district, as that district lies along most of the shoreline in the township and is probably a highly popular area for rentals. We've asked how they will confirm if there were short-term rentals in the AR and R2 district, and how will these owners be notified that they now have to get a license. Also, why only 40? Suttons Bay and Bingham Township both allow for more, and Elmwood Township is more densely populated. After the County Planning Commission meeting, the report and copy of draft minutes will be sent to the township for consideration. The decision of the Township Board is final, unless it is petitioned under the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act for submission to the electors of the township for their approval.
Thank you very much. I hope you can all turn to page 11 in the preamble of page 10 and keep that in your agenda packet open, because I think that's a succinct output from the whole thing. So thank you very much. At this time, Sarah, are you with us?
I'm here.
Would you have any, are you cashing in? Is the audio okay for you?
Yes, it's a little bit quiet, but I got it. I heard everything that Gail had to say.
Do you have any comments related to the review from staff?
No, I think the staff did a thorough review of the history. I mean, it's been a long time. A lot of work's gone into it to get it condensed down into just a couple of pages on what we have completed. And we just look forward to hearing your comments related to the county master plan and any adjacent municipalities or townships that may be affected by our amendment. And, you know, I'm available for any questions that you may have related to, you know, our decision or what it's come up with.
Thank you. From our part, I'm sure all my colleagues here commend you for the, and not through the weeks, not through the month, but through the years. And It's good to see it coming to fruition. Thank you very much for your leadership there, Stan.
You're welcome.
At this time, what I'd like to do is allow us as commissioners to make reactions, comments, recommendations that would enable Sarah Kopriva
Copriva.
I like that. Copriva, allow to take back to the planning commission. But before I start with my colleagues here, I don't want to forget my colleagues there, so I'm going to start with them. Upper right, Steve Yoder, any comments or suggestions for improvement on the process or whatever to enabling the planning commission in Elmwood?
Yeah, no, the only thing I can really add, I guess, is just the process that they went through was very thorough. Was very impressed with how the public was able to have, discussion in it. A lot of public hearings involved with it. I like how that process went about. Obviously, going through and reviewing it, I did have a question that and I know staff brought it up as well, as about the number 40, how that came into edit that.
Cannot hear you.
Up, can you hear me
I
now?
think the noise in the background shifted us to another mic. Could you come back with us, Steve?
Can you hear
We
me
probably
now?
lost one sentence.
No, I was just stating that the number 40, that they set a limit to in the township there. I guess I was just curious where that number came from, and I know staff brought that up as well. Obviously being a neighboring Solon Township, it's something that I'm sure we'll have to address in the future, and just curious as to why it was set at that with all the other townships that were higher than that. But other than that, I don't really see any issues with it. I commend them on their work well done, I think. Obviously a long process, and sure glad to see it come to an end.
Thank you. Nixon, any comments?
Just a couple. I would echo what Steve has said. This is evident of a planning commission that really did a commendable job, extremely difficult task, and yet the procedures that were followed are exemplary. Lots of community involvement. Your survey was most impressive. The volume of letters and public opinion clearly show that this community is arrived at a point where some kind of decision has to be made. And that's not been an easy process, but it clearly has involved a number of your folks. So I would say, Tara, you're certainly not having to make this decision in isolation. And so we appreciate the material you gave us. Just a couple of points to step on kind of what Steve had mentioned. A numerical value being placed, I recognized the data was examined, and you looked at the possibility that there existed in the township currently probably 40 homes that might qualify. But I would suggest you might consider looking at a percentage. Your residential total is going to vary over the next few years. And I would think that maybe every 5 years or so, one takes another look at the total number of homes in that community and maybe apply more of a percentage factor than an isolated single number. And secondly, granted, we're not evaluating the enforcement language, but I would caution you to be careful that your language doesn't promote any intrusion by the township into any kind of home. There's certain liabilities I think you recognize that a township would take on if they entered the door to determine whether all of the conditions in an ordinance are being followed. And that caution has to be made that you're not providing supervision in a fashion that really intrudes on the property or the facility. But other than that, I'm certainly another one who wants to commend you for the hard work, the diligent, difficult, hard work that you've done on behalf of your township to arrive at a decision. May not be the final decision as you go through the next few years, but it certainly has got you to a starting spot.
Thank you. Hubble? Do you have
I
any
have
comments?
nothing more to add. I congratulate the planning commission for the great job they did, but nothing more to add.
Thank you. Casey?
Nothing further.
Miller?
I have the same question regarding the 40 number, how it was arrived at and how, if it's appropriate. And that's really the question. I think they did a great job other than that question.
I'll let the Sarah couple keep track of some of these issues if you feel you want to respond to the question. But let me complete the comments first. Okay. Now, to our great representative at the phone.
I concur with the comments already made. Those are the same questions that I had. How did we derive it at 40? I think it's a great idea to consider a percentage, and I too commend them on all the work and effort and participation that has gone into the presentation tonight.
Thank you, Carson. Now, Philip?
The only thing that I would raise is the same thing. I'm curious as to how they arrived at the 40 number.
Okay. Thank you. Sarah, you better give us an answer. Winkleman?
I have a different sort of perspective on this. If you're in an R1 and somebody's renting the house next to you and they're not behaving, what do? Who do you call? Okay, that's got to be a concern. So if there's an absentee landlord, so to speak, what recourse do the people next door have? I would like to just put this out there. I'm not making a motion, it's just an idea. That the owner of any of these rentals, if it's not owner occupied, must live within 20 miles of the intersection of M22 and M72. Now, if they are going down to Florida, or they have a place up in the UP, and they're not in the Elmwood Township area, and they want a local professional to manage the property for them, that person must live within 30 miles of the M22, M72 intersection. The purpose of this is that adjacent neighbors who feel that the short-term rental occupants are encroaching upon their peaceful use and enjoyment of their property would have a means to let people know that, hey, these guys aren't behaving, you've got to do something about it. So that's my suggestion, that somehow a system be set up so that if adjacent neighbors have a problem with occupants of a short-term rental, they have a recourse, other than maybe calling the police, or as a final recourse, call the sheriff's department. That's my input. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
Thank you. I've read this with interest. I have to agree the planning board did an awful lot of work on this. But one of the things, a couple of things, I agree with what Eric is saying, and more on that later. But first, I moved up here a little over a year ago, and I think it's a fantastic, beautiful county that we live in. And I can appreciate the position of people living in R1 districts as far as having a rental next door to them. I today talked to a friend of mine that lives in Elmwood Township, and he told me flat out, I don't want a rental next door to me. And that's what he said. Okay, I can appreciate that. But one of the things I have followed in the news since I moved up here, and I try to read the paper every day when it's published, and I've tried to follow in the Leelanau news, and short-term rentals have been kind of a hot button here in our county. And again, I can appreciate the feelings of both parties on this here situation. I know none of them personally, but I do know that in talking with numerous people that I've called, today I spent some time on the phone, yesterday as well, trying to get a pulse of the feeling of the people. And one of the things that was pointed out to me, and I think would be beneficial, would be to have all these townships that are involved in short-term rentals and some of them that have even passed ordinances, to take a hard look at forming an HOA, a housing association within their group. Homeowners association that would take a hard look at rentals. We don't know the final outcome of this here, whole proposal, but we do know that it's going to go next step beyond us. And I would highly recommend they look at all these townships of forming an HOA if they decide that they do want rentals, should they make that decision, and determine where and what's appropriate to have a short-term rental. Personally, I wouldn't mind having one next door to me because it'd give me the opportunity to meet some interesting people. Wife and I rent in Florida every year, and we use a short-term rental. And we try to be a good renter. And I think if they do allow them, they need to look at regulation. I think those things like having somebody to call. There are property managers out there that can take and manage these properties for the out-of-state people. But again, whatever decision is made, hopefully people will be in agreement with each other over the thing and the final answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Lautner?
Yes, thank you. A couple things that I thought about in reading this over is, it's already been mentioned, perhaps tonight, the percentage rather than a number just seems to be a much more logical approach to that. I guess I'd like to hear a little bit more about why they chose the number considering surrounding townships have different numbers. I think it's interesting that the township as a whole seems to be generally favorable towards the short-term rentals. So it just seems obvious to me that maybe this should go back to the Planning Commission for a further review. There's a lot of favorable things about short-term rentals, and it seems to me that they've done a lot of work in the ordinance as far as parking, as far as the number of people that can stay in the home, et cetera. So it seems to me that in itself is going to limit any real small places where the homes may be really packed in there because it's not going to fit the intended ordinance. So that in itself would be some sort of a thinning out process. There's traffic to consider, and I think that something along the line of a grandfathering in could be considered, and perhaps even a trial basis or a step back even for a couple of years with some regulations put in place. I've never had a short-term rental. I've had long-term rentals, and I've had some really good long-term rentals that I actually cried when they left, and I've had some really bad. And the really bad outweighed the really good, and I would never want to live next door to them ever again. And one of the things that can happen is you think about this limits people, and this goes for countywide, not just Elmwood Township, but it limits the number of people where you get into a long-term rental situation. What happens up here a lot is the next thing you know, you've got another family moving in with a family, and you've got a lot more cars, and you got a lot more noise, and you've lost control of the situation, and you're right back to the whole situation all over again. So I recognize the fact there's been a lot of work done to this. I recognize the fact that there's a lot of public interest. The survey I thought was a very interesting aspect of it. Do I want to send our staff I guess I would be in favor, I guess, of sending our staff comments on to the township.
I'll accept that a motion after I make some.
Yeah, that was just one of my
Okay, I'd like to make
comments,
some
not a
comments.
motion.
And I'd like to-
Support.
It's okay if it is a motion.
And I'd like to also then turn to our planner as well.
Did our Zoomers, did they understand the motion?
There's no motion
Did she
here.
make a motion?
It was
Did
not
the
intended
Linda
to be a
just make a
motion.
motion?
I asked her to hold on that until the chair made some comments.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. I got messed up
I
on
will
the
honor
procedure.
that when we're done. And also I'd like to have comments from Sarah before we go on to transfer motion. Thank you very much for your help there. I was very confused as I read this document, spent hours over it, until I finally realized that the problem was very simple. There are three alternatives. In my little one sheet, you probably saw my frustrations when I went to the paperwork. But at the end, there are three alternatives. One, none. Another one, none in R1, none in AR2, and none in R2, unless the AR and R2s were in operation 2 years prior. The license can be granted yearly, otherwise forbidden. Another one is deleting some word and qualify. So there's a ensemble of alternatives here that I hope the planning commission can look at like a bird's eye view and see what is the best way to proceed. I would suggest something, but that would be completely out of order. Now, also I want us to remember some of the concerns we verbalized are not related to a zoning ordinance, are related to a police ordinance, police power ordinance. We are not reviewing police power ordinance, and that's where you put conditions like speed limits that can be enforced with a whistle from a policeman. So that is where concerns with number of cars parked and all that's where the issues come on. The zoning ordinance relates to the location and the activities that are going to be there and how it affects the public. And that's what we're looking at. And at this time, I'd like us then to turn it to Copreva, telling us first, one question was the issue of 40, how did that come up? And you probably also picked up any of the other comments that you want to refer us to.
Sure. So the planning commission, well, let me go back a little bit. I'll give you a little bit of history that wasn't in the staff report. The township last year hired host compliance to go through and identify the short-term rentals that were currently listed in the township. So once host compliance went through and did that, they told us there's about 100 units on average that are operating in a month. It's live real-time data, so every time you log in, it could be a different number, but it hovers right around 100 and has for about 4 months now, 4 or 5 months. So that's what we started with, and when we could go through and identify which units were in which zoning districts. So at least the ones that were identified with addresses, there still are a few that are not identified in the process. So we found that most of them were in the R1 district, and then this 40 number comes up to the rest of the districts that are out there. So when the planning commission went through and looked at the districts, and that was a big conversation, which districts, it's a very hot topic. Do they belong in the R1 district or not? The concern is that there is the waterfront there. Historically, that's where they've been located. How do we deal with that? But at the end, the planning commission felt that, or a majority felt that the R1 district may not be appropriate in addressing some of the contested findings that were in the zoning ordinance. And so that's when it was removed from the R1 district. And that number was changed to 40 in that police power ordinance, just because they started with 100 because we had about 100 units. Everybody kind of feels comfortable with what we currently have. But when you remove it from the R1 district, leaving it the number at 100 is a big increase in some of the districts that just don't have that density of short-term rentals currently. So that's where we got the 40. And then it's interesting, the percent of housing units, that discussion, I actually just had that discussion in the office today with the supervisor. And maybe something that would come up at the township board level as a number instead of 40. The planning commission, had acknowledged that we currently have about 4 or 5% of our housing population is considered short-term rentals. And again, like I said, people are pretty comfortable with what we currently have in the township, maybe not expanding that too much. So that is definitely an option that we could look at in our police power ordinance, as long as it's laid out that it's either how it's evaluated and when it's evaluated, so that we know when issuing licenses and how many licenses are available. And then I think the only other thing I wanted to address was who do you call and having the availability within a certain amount of time or miles. The township is interested in having host compliance. We are enforcing agency, I guess. There's a 1-800 number the neighbors can call any time of the day, 24/7. They will field that call, collect the documentation from the neighbors. If there's fireworks going off in the middle of the night, they can take a picture, they can take a video, it goes to host compliance. Host compliance can reach out to the owner or a caregiver that's required to be on file. That person can address it. That person is required in the licensing ordinance to live within 30 miles of the rental, so that they are available on a short time to be able to go to the property. And then host compliance would send the report to the township, the next business day, and tell us that we had this issue, and we can follow up on a staff level locally with the owner or the caregiver at the property. And then if it's something that's not so urgent, say their trash isn't being put in the correct place, they're not going to deal with that in the middle of the night. That's something we deal with during regular business hours with the homeowner. So I think that was the only comments really that I wrote down or I remember, but if there's anything else anybody has, I'll be happy to answer them.
Cool. Welcome.
Is it Sarah? Can I call you Sarah?
Absolutely.
Okay. How do you enforce your zoning ordinances? Because you're going to have additional rentals in R1 districts, and somebody decides to have a party, and they have all of a sudden 20 people hanging out, and they're drinking, and they're yelling, and they're cutting up everything. Like what we used to do in college and so forth. How does the adjacent homeowners deal with a situation that's got out of control? Do they call the sheriff's department first, and then you deal with the property owners later, or how is that managed?
You could do two things, both things at the same time. That was where host compliance would come in. They're going to be on for, the 24/7 availability, since, typically noise issues and parties and things like that happen after hours or on the weekends. We have that 1-800 number that is available. It'd be posted on our website. The neighbors would hopefully know about it. The renter is required to post, their rental license. And then the township
number, excuse me for interrupting, the 1-800 number that you just mentioned, what agency or who would that connect them to?
That would connect them to host compliance.
Okay, but let's say it's 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
What happens in that situation?
Their host compliance answers the phone.
Okay, and then what happens after that?
So if, say my neighbor was being loud, having a party, I would call them and tell host compliance, here's the address of the property I'm having issues with. Host compliance, they can send you a text message or an email and say, here, please take pictures, please take a video, provide that information to us. You go out, you take your picture, you send it to host compliance. Host compliance then says, thank you for giving us this information, and reaches out to the owner or caregiver that's on file and says, you have, 30 minutes or an hour to take care of this, whatever time limit's laid out. And when it's resolved, please let us know. They also tell the person that's calling, somebody's going to be out, in an hour to take care of this, let us know. And then once that issue is resolved, from the owner caregiver perspective, they reach out to the neighbor and say, was it taken care of? Is everything okay? And then report that back to the township on the next business day so that we can mark it down. We have record of it, know if it becomes a chronic problem in that area, and can follow up with it with the owner or the caregiver of the property.
Let me ask you one final question. The person who would come if a occupier was mishandling the use of the property or was out of order, and the host compliance person came there, would that host compliance make a decision would that host compliance person possibly make a decision that things are maybe so out of control, I need to get the sheriff here?
Yeah, they could, and there's nothing that would stop the neighboring property owner from calling the sheriff's department. You'd have to check with the sheriff's department. I'm not going to speak for what they would enforce or what they would do, but the township doesn't have a noise ordinance for the whole township. Really, it's just the short-term renters that have certain noise requirements in that police power ordinance. And then if they're breaking any other laws that the sheriff's department shows up to and can enforce, that would be up to them. I would have to check with host compliance. I don't know if host compliance ever calls law enforcement, depending on the situation, or if they would depend on the neighbor to call the sheriff's department, since they're the one that's local and present.
Thank you for your illuminating information. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman?
To put you at ease, host compliance is an international corporation. Worldwide. I heard the founder in a meeting of the Michigan Township Association. So they're true professionals. And I think Suttons Bay can be a resource if there's any trouble, because they've been living with home compliance now for a year and a half.
Oh.
Yeah, I know Suttons Bay uses them, and then East Bay uses them as well.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman?
Question?
Yes? Oh, yes.
I think
Sorry.
listening to this discussion, it appears that we're really drifting into police and ordinance rather than the zoning. How they deal with noise, how they deal with parking problems, that's not zoning.
You're correct.
Can I comment to that? I agree with what was just said, but I think there will be a motion, and as we think about the motion, what are the implications of the zoning will be with respect to property owners, both those who are there and those who choose to rent their property out. I don't know how you can separate them, but that's my personal opinion. Thank you.
No, I think what Miller's proposing that the details in the police power ordinance are covering some of the concerns you've urbanized. But that is not before us now. We're looking just at the zoning ordinance. Lautner, did you want to speak?
If I can make a motion to forward staff comments and minutes from this meeting tonight to the Elmwood.
Thank you for your motion. Is there a second?
Support. Yes.
I'll second
Any
it.
discussion?
Did it once.
We have a third even.
All those in favor, indicate by saying aye.
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 Now, you notice our visitors, you've been very wonderful here. I hope you're not discouraged that we did not do something that you really wanted us to do, but you know now that we are just happy with whatever you do. Any other comments for our visitors?
I read both of your comments, very thoughtful, well done. In fact, all the I don't remember such extensive and comprehensive comments from a community that's come before the Planning Commission. And I've been on this Planning Commission probably for too many years. So I thank you and thank your fellow residents.
There was a lot of reading.
Can we go on and not take a break? Okay. Suttons Bay staff report. This is a text amendment. Thank you very much. Hey, let's give him a round of applause.
pass it on if you want.
We love it when we have visitors.
Thank you. Well, it was a pleasure to be here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Drive safe.
Thank you much.
Right.
Ready?
You're for
This was a request was received on October 20th from Suttons Bay Township. The proposed amendment will amend Article 4, Agricultural District, to allow seasonal outdoor mazes as a new item P to the list of special uses. The new item P outlines the parcel size requirements of not less than 25 acres with at least 325 feet of road frontage. Parking is required off the public road and minimum setbacks are listed along with hours of operation. Under P, item 4, it states that this use is allowed in the agricultural district as a primary use or as accessory use to other permitted agricultural district uses. All structures associated with the maze require a special land use permit as well as any expansion of uses or activities. And just under comments, staff found very little information on regulating seasonal corn mazes through a search online. The township is treating this as a special use in section 4.4, which includes other special uses like golf courses, commercial storage of boats and vehicles, wineries and cideries, campgrounds, and special events.
The ordinance itself is on page 54 and 55. And staff report was included in the pages that preceded it. Any questions for staff? Steve Patmore, are you here? Steve Patmore, are you aware? Are you there? I thought he was going to try to be in. Okay. Okay. Any questions from the commissioners? This was a little innocent but nicely prepared. I shouldn't give an answer to it like that. I didn't see anything controversial when I reviewed it.
I guess, if I may, I guess I may have one kind of a question, kind of a comment. I had always understood that corn mazes just fall under the generally accepted agricultural management practices. But I was kind of surprised to see there really wasn't a lot found on the mazes. Under GAMP?
Yeah.
So it's just been
online and
okay. So it's just been falling on townships that say, yeah, it's a farm, let them do it, or it's an agricultural operation, let them do it. Is this kind of what I'm understanding? Okay. And then the 25 acres contiguous land, that's a lot of land. It's a lot of property, and it seems to me like what I've been noticing, and especially in Leelanau County, and maybe Casey, this might come of interest with Steve, Dan, it seems to me that, well, we all know most farms are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and a lot of agricultural operations are operating on smaller and smaller pieces, and a lot can be done on 10, 15 acres. And I'm quite confident that a corn maze could be done on 10 acres. So that's why I was just wondering about that 25 acres. I do understand the road frontage or parking. They've got to look at all of those things. I think that's very important. But at least right now, the farm or the agricultural destinations are wildly popular. And part of the draw to any place, I guess, outside the city, anywhere right now, are these sort of things. So I guess that's the only thing I would have to say about it. I learned something about it, and I think we've got more to. I think we can always learn more about it.
Any other comments?
I have a question from Linda.
Yes?
Do you think that if I understand correctly, 25 acres is too big, it doesn't need to be that large? So if they were to have a 25-acre requirement, that would zone out a lot of other people who would like to have a corn maze?
That's my interpretation of it.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with that. One other thing I might say, 325 feet of front road frontage is a lot. That's well over 100 yards.
It's longer than a football field, yeah.
That's right. That seems
Well,
to me
about
to
the
be.
size of the end zones, yeah.
Yeah, it seems to me to be inordinately large.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I will point out that Steve Patmore has joined the group, and he might be able to offer some insight into some of these questions you're raising.
Hi, Steve.
Yeah, Steve's back, speak up. He's on the right side there.
Lower
Oh,
right.
Steve, you're there.
Yes, he is.
I was calling you earlier.
Get him a beer.
Welcome. Steve Patmore, bottom right.
I don't know if he can hear us.
I don't know if he hears us. Raise your hand if you hear us, Steve.
Do you hear me, Steve?
Can you get him, can you highlight him and talk to him? There, he's got his hand on his face.
Have you got your mic on, Steve?
He's not saying anything.
Oh, he's trying to talk.
Now he
Unmute.
is.
Now you hear?
Can he hear us?
Who's got a sign? Turn on your mic, Steve.
Yeah,
Tell him to turn on his
he
mic.
could hear
Turn
us.
on the mic.
Unmute. There he said. Unmute, Steve.
Turn on your mic, Steve.
It's not working.
Hey, 325 feet. You split the 40.
Perhaps he can call in.
Yeah.
Why don't you write a sign, turn on your mic?
Well,
You look
how about
Too bad we don't do sign language.
So,
Just sign language.
camera?
he might not be working.
And I wouldn't go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, you are awake.
It is on. It's been on.
Now it's working.
Been talking about you.
You're breaking up then.
One at a time,
We
please.
can't hear you now.
Is it okay if I call in?
We can hear you.
You're good. We can hear you.
Okay.
256-8109.
He's gonna try to just.
Well, we can hear him.
We could hear you.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Have him call in.
Zoomerific.
Yes.
Me up. Comes back.
Where do you put the phone number in front of the camera?
There's,
There he is.
He seems to
He
me,
was.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, he's done.
okay, is this better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Don't move.
Yeah.
Okay,
talk.
what was your question for me?
It had to do with the size of the acreage that's proposed.
Okay, the 25 acres came from discussion with the planning commission and our planner.
The 325 feet is not all that much, because if you divide a 40-acre piece into 4 tens, each front would be 330 feet. If you were dividing 40. So I don't think it's all that much.
Oh, that's a big square.
I still can't hear him.
Well, to ask if he heard your comments.
Steve? Steve, it's Melinda. Are you hearing me?
Have him call in.
He's not responding.
That connection is about as good as 10 out of 4 hours.
Yeah, very good. Okay.
Watch it.
Read my lips.
The other way. Go the other way. Gotta go.
He's got the
there.
phone in his hand.
Sorry, Victor, we can't read that.
There he is.
Hi, Steve.
Hi there.
It's Gail.
Yeah.
I'm gonna-
There's a huge delay between what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing. That's my problem.
Okay. Well, you're on speakerphone now. So hopefully you can hear us over the microphone and we'll hear you on the speaker's phone, okay?
Give me 1 second to mute my computer.
Okay.
Have them give me 1 second.
There were some questions about the area. Is there any other questions?
The minimum size of 25 acres.
Okay, the minimum size came from the planning commission, and the planner had conversations, and that was what they decided. Their discussion went all the way from 10 acres up to, some people wanted 40 or 50 acres. So the 25 was a compromise.
Any other questions?
We want the frontage 325 footage along the road.
Yeah, the frontage of 325 feet, how did that come about?
That came about because the planner and planning commission, a standard 10-acre parcel is around 330 foot wide. And the planner felt that we needed some kind of minimum frontage for that, for a corn maze. They wanted consciously corn mazes to be on relatively larger parcels, not on smaller parcels.
Turning to staff, was there anything else in your report that you want to
Would any
clarify?
parcel be big enough to have a corn maze?
Okay.
Okay, good.
I'm going now, going down the way.
It's huge.
I think we ought to have 10 of them in the county, we can have an
I'm gonna
annual
go a lot
competition.
more come around the way. Do you have any more comments for this item?
No, Steve, I don't know if you've heard my comments earlier, but I still, just personally, and it's just my thought, is that the 25 acres might be a little bit large for these sorts of things. That's a lot of property, and we see more and more, I will call them micro farms in Leelanau County. We've seen, and it's amazing to me, and it's impressive to me that what we're seeing people do and produce and make work on 10 and 15 acres. It's an amazing thing to me. So 25 just for a corn maze seems kind of big, because I don't know if you're talking that the maze itself, would be not less than 25 acres, because that's a lot, or if just the property itself would have to be 25 acres, and the maze, whatever size that it would be. Let me see what else. And then we wondered about the, with the generally accepted management practices. Because it seems to me like somebody could challenge you under that it would be potentially a use under agriculture.
Can I answer that then?
Yes, please.
Okay, I know the Right to Farm Act was considered when they were doing this, and I think your staff report even referenced the MSU extension documents, and local governments can regulate marketing activities such as camping, carnivals, concerts, corn mazes, fishing ponds. They had a list in your staff report. Those, the GAMPs for the Right to Farm Act specifically say that they can be regulated by the local government. So in Sutton's Bay, we had a guy that wants to do a commercial corn maze, and he approached the planning commission. He had recommended that we look at Bingham's Lane. Bingham allows a corn maze as a use by right. And that's where the discussion started in Sutton's Bay, but the planning commission was adamant that they wanted it to be a special land use with a minimum parcel size and the minimum lot width. So that came about after quite a bit of discussion with the planning commission and their planner.
Any other questions? Black? Winkleman?
Yeah, my only thought is there's a way to maybe reduce the minimal size of the parcels for a corn maze that might allow for more corn mazes. And Leelanau County could become a corn maze destination for the state of Michigan. I'm just thinking the marketing aspects of it.
Any comments? Patrol?
Corn is great.
Okay.
What is the corn maze?
McCullough? Any comments?
No.
It's a map.
Charleston?
Yeah, you don't need 25 acres.
Hubble? Any comments?
Was this a minimum?
Yoder, any comments?
No.
No, none, any comments?
Lower that.
No.
Nixon, any comments?
No.
Miller, any comments?
Just a question regarding required parking is required off the public road. It doesn't say how much parking, and I'm not sure how you'd quantify that in an ordinance or a zoning ordinance, but if you had 3 spaces, you've got parking off the road. That probably is not going to be adequate.
Can I answer that?
Yes, please.
Okay, by making it a special, that's one of the advantages of making it a special land use is during the site plan review, the planning commission will look at each and every proposal and look at how much parking may or may not be required and can make that determination when they issue the special use permit. So they can make it a requirement that all parking is off the public right of way, but when they review the plan, it will be based upon the size of the project being proposed.
How big a maze or what? I'm not sure I understand.
Well, yeah, how big the maze is and how much property there is, how many visitors the proprietor will plan on having, and what other activities they will have with that. Are they going to have a farm stand there or farm market there potentially? That all will be taken into consideration by the planning commission.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
We'll leave the one on second.
Are you ready for the motion?
The ordinance reads not less than 25 acres.
I'd like to
Gotta
see-
have 25 acres, right?
Yeah. That ought to be like 10 acres.
That's what I think, not less than 10 acres.
Well, let's make it a
Is there
recommendation.
a comment? McCullough?
What?
Can you comment on that?
We just pass our comments
Oh,
on.
speak,
Comment on
you might.
the record.
It says that the minimum size shall be not less than 25 acres. Why don't you say between 10 and 25 acres? Instead of making it, you can do a corn maze in 10 acres very, very easily. You don't have to have
Do it
25
an
acres.
acre, really. If the corn is tall.
Steve?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but that's the decision the planning commission made. And Tom and I will take that back to the planning commission or to the township board, and I don't disagree with you.
Thank you. I know this is being recorded, and we will pass those comments almost overnight to the planning commission. Any other comments on this? Can we have an enabling motion?
Well, then give us an enabling motion.
I recommend we pass along staff comments, the minutes from this meeting to the Suttons Bay Township Planning Commission.
Support.
Support. What other support? Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Or aye. Vote is unanimous. Thank you. Now we're in new item business C,
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Padmore, you're a great servant of, what is it, 3 townships? 4?
Yeah. I'm off.
Thank you. Okay.
24.
Dates.
McCullough.
What?
No, not McCullough. Agenda item.
Are we on item C?
We're on dates.
We're now done on C.
Right, well, I have the meeting schedule that we approved of earlier this year. And November 24th is the Tuesday right before Thanksgiving. And December 22nd is the Tuesday right before Christmas Day. So I guess we could all meet remotely or something like that. I mean, I don't know. I know in the past we've changed the meeting dates. I don't know if it makes sense to do it or not. I'm just bringing it up because it was an option that we had pursued in previous years.
So I hear you making a request to staff to feed back to us what they propose?
I'm putting out there for all of us to maybe come to some sort of consensus. Do we keep the regular meeting dates as we agreed upon originally, or do we want to adjust them because of the propinquity of the meeting dates to 2 of the major holidays at the end of the year?
Lautner?
I understand the concern because it does start getting really busy those days. But I was looking at where we might change it, and I see conflicts. The only thing really open for me would be the night before, which would be Monday evenings, and I know others have Monday night meetings. So I guess we could ask everybody perhaps whether they're going to be available or whether it will be a conflict if they're going to be traveling, et cetera. I don't have a conflict myself. It is getting close to both of those precious holidays, but I wouldn't have any conflicts.
May I then propose that we refer this to staff to maybe if necessary do a doodle poll to find out availabilities? Okay, thank you. Education Committee report.
Nothing to report right now.
Okay. Housing Action Committee report.
We did not have Housing Action Committee meeting for October because of the Housing Summit put on by Housing North, which was this week. So we'll wait to get reports back from those who went to the Housing Summit and have something next month to report.
Any questions for Housing Action Committee? Yes.
Will it be possible for our next meeting to have like a summary of what went on at that summit? That would be very interesting too.
Actually, if I may,
Huh?
yes, absolutely. And if I may, I'm going to back up because I guess we haven't met since. But last month, we, the Housing Action Committee recommended that we become a partner with Housing North. And so we did that. It passed, and it passed the full commission. I'm not going to find the photo I'm looking for because I took a picture, a screenshot of what we did. But basically, that allows us, by becoming a $1,000 partner for the year, kind of a trial basis thing, see if it works, if we like it type thing. But it gave us 3 memberships, or 3 registrations for this housing summit that's this week. And there was a lot of interest in that. So we got the 3 registrations, and it allows us at the seat during regional roundtable discussions, etc. So that's what we recommended, and it did pass the full board. So.
Okay. And the dates are what?
I'm sorry?
The dates are what?
There were
They were.
22nd through, sorry?
He said were.
Yeah, they were like 22nd, 3rd, 4th, something like that. I wasn't able to go, so I did. So we just had that.
Thank you. Noonan, Parks and Rec.
Yeah, not a lot to report. Not a lot to report. We're working on some end of the year, trying to get some money spent here. COVID's kind of slowed us down on some projects or getting some things done. But right now we're taking a look at making some upgrades at some of our parks. At Old Settlers, we are in the process of doing a grub shack remodel. I've talked about that before. That's I talked to the contractor today. He's planning on starting there next week. And one other thing is the Poor Farm barn at Miles Kimberly that was just repainted. I don't know if anybody's been by there, but it really looks nice. They've got a nice big sign on there now that says Leelanau County Poor Farm Barn, 1901 to 1960. But it's really looks sharp. They've done a lot of work there, and that's been a really neat project. But other than that, that's really all that's going on right now.
Thank you, Miller. You want to say something?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Your frame is lit up, so I thought, no.
Oh, that was earlier. I apologize. I should have turned it off.
No, you're not turning it off. If you make a noise, it goes on. Yeah, okay, fine. Reports from meetings. I'll start with McCullough.
No.
I'll go on with Winkelmann.
No formal meetings,
I'll
no.
go on to Black.
No.
I'll go on to Lochner.
Yep.
I go on to
Nope.
Carlson. I go on to the peanut gallery there. Any one of the five of you has something with the report in relationship to visits or something like that? Okay. You look funny, you know that? The five of you up there, you keep on bouncing, changing frames here.
You look quite funny looking down on you too.
I know you are looking down on us, it's obvious. We feel it. Okay. No, don't put that on the minutes, please.
No, I think it should be.
Second the idea.
Notice from Village of Empire, transportation plan update.
It's on the back there, you can read it. See?
Page 15, who's gonna report that?
On the back, turn it over, the whole packet.
On the back. Yes, but who's gonna report on that?
There you go.
No, it was just an FYI.
It's just information?
It was
Yeah.
coming.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a report. Public comments is, the phone number. At this time, we will honor public comments from the public. The phone number to engage into that is 231-256-8109. I'll repeat that. 231-256-8109. We will pause for about 45 seconds in case somebody was there and wanted to speak. Thank you very much. Public comments now, staff comments, anything to be added?
No?
Commissioner comments? Any further comments, Winkelmann?
Yeah, I have three really important comments.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Number one, this Sunday, daylight savings time ends, so don't forget to send your clocks back 1 hour.
Sleep another hour.
2, following this Sunday and Tuesday is Election Day. We all know what we're supposed to have done or will need to do on Election Day. Number 3, on October 20th of this month, the Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore completed its 50th year of existence. So now we're in year 51. I hope COVID will be done so then we can begin to have some real fun. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Anybody, any commissioners, any comments? Nixon?
Yeah, just one comment. I think it's the second time in a year that we've had parties address us as if we are the Supreme Court. And Victor, you did a good job of helping them understand that, you know, it's their local township board that makes the final decision with issues that are brought before us. But I'm wondering if it wouldn't be maybe it seems unnecessary, but I think it is necessary that maybe staff address a letter to each township board and each township planning commission with a statement that would help people recognize the role that we perform rather than the role they think we perform. I appreciated all the material that we had. I thought it was very interesting to read through all that material, but I did notice that 3 of the people who made presentations tonight had included exactly the same written comments in our packets. Now, that doesn't mean that I diminish their thoughts in any way, because I certainly don't, and certainly anyone from the public can read anything they want. But I'm just concerned that maybe the understanding is not clearly there for those people who do come to us with a misperception that we're going to solve the problem for them rather than they are the sole body that needs to solve the problem. Just a suggestion.
I will
Good
follow up
suggestion.
with Judy. I will draft something for her. She can perfect it and we'll send that letter out.
Great.
Very good.
Like a letter of memorandum or something like that.
Very good suggestion. We try to reinforce that, and that shows that we are not doing enough in reaching into the planning commissions of our townships and villages. So as we go on in the months that follow, begin to think, how can we help them learn without letting them know that we're trying to have them learn something? So this is something we should follow up with. Okay, and you, yes.
I move for adjournment.
Wait, let me say something.
Oh, okay.
Cut them off. Don't cut them off.
I didn't mean to.
I know.
Little anxious. He was gonna make it, he was gonna second or jump up. The chair can also declare adjournment without having to have a motion.
You can.
Yes.
Yeah, you
I
can.
want to thank you. You guys over there, I know that, I hope you don't feel disenfranchised, that we don't give you much attention. But I appreciate the fact that we have unanimity. All of us were present for a meeting, and this is exciting. So with that, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
Well, there is.
Happy Halloween.
Did you have a good Yom Kippur? And a good Hanukkah, my friend?
Well, there's 2 things with those kids. There's, first of all, there's Rosh Hashanah, which means that first year. And then, but you see, where I belong, everybody went virtual. And I've done a couple of virtual things.